Hello, thank you for joining me here at Why the Book Wins. My name is Laura and today I am doing my November reading wrap up. I actually thought of not recording this as an actual video because I posted a YouTube short showing the 9 books I read this month and what I rated them. So I was like, that's good enough. But then I decided I would go ahead and actually do a wrap up where I talk about these books. I probably will stop doing wrap ups in 2023. I'll do one for December to end the year out, especially because I had my best book of 2022 going, right? And I talked about it at the end of every wrap up. So I will continue that for this year, but going into 2023, I'm gonna have some new changes happening with the channel. So I'll do a video at the beginning of the year talking about my plans for the channel in 2023. Anyway, let's get into the books I read this month. So beginning with my least favorite, I read White Noise by Don DeDellio. And yeah, I gave this 2 stars. This one I wanted to like, and it seemed like one I should have liked. The characters are very quirky. They reminded me of like from a Wes Anderson movie. And it was just an odd story. It's about this family of, he's been married 4 times, and so he has all of these kids from different wives, plus the kids from his current wife. And like I said, the kids all had like Wes Anderson attitudes where they spoke in ways you wouldn't expect a child to speak in some ways. And then the dad is like a professor teaching Hitler in college, and he just has some really odd conversations with different people. And so I had a hard time connecting with the characters, I think, because none of them spoke in a way that felt real, and it was just always like odd is the best way I can describe it, like and quirky, I guess. Anyway, there is an airborne toxic event that happens, and so then that plays a part with like the city going into chaos, but then after that ends, things kind of go back to normal, but just like the after effects of this airborne toxic event. And then his wife is taking these mysterious pills, and so that's part of it as well. Like near the end we find out the deal with that. But yeah, I just had a hard time getting into this book. I really had to force myself to finish it. The movie comes out in December on Netflix. I'm hoping to see it in theaters and then do a book versus movie before its Netflix release, but I'm really excited for the movie, and I'm hoping I will click more with the movie than I did with the book, but we shall see. So yeah, anyway, I wouldn't recommend this one. I think it's one I would have appreciated more if I'd read it in like a group setting and I could have had group conversations and discussions about it like in class, but I read it by myself and so I didn't have that and I just didn't get it. By the way, follow me on Goodreads. So yeah, that is number 9 on the list of books I read this month. Number 8 is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This is the first Riley Sager book I have ever read. I chose this one because Sarah Hawkinson at Possessed by Horror talked about this one and she loved it, and so I read it, and yeah, it was great for what I wanted. It was a thriller, mystery, scary. It didn't make me like scared of the dark or anything, which isn't a bad thing because I don't like being scared of the dark, but it definitely had me interested and I was curious what the deal was. And it goes back and forth between like the present timeline, and then it gives excerpts of this book that the main character's dad had written. So I'll just tell the premise. So we have the main character, I forget her name now, but when she was a kid, they had lived in this house, but then they fled after 20 days and they claimed that it was haunted and that's why they left. And then the dad wrote a book about the experience, and then flash forward, the woman is now 30 years old. She goes back to this house to figure out what the truth is because she doesn't remember. She like blocked her memory of that time, and so all her life she's assumed her dad just lied about it. So yeah, we get bits from this book he wrote intermixed with current day when she is at this house. So the sections from his book that he wrote, I was not into that at all and I really didn't care. I just wanted to hear about current day. So despite my complaints by getting the sections from the book he wrote, I did enjoy this. It was an easy read. It was a quick read. The reveal, the twist at the end I really liked, and yeah, I thought it was well done. It seems a lot of people love Riley Sager, but then I've also heard a lot of people complain about him. But anyway, as this being my first Riley Sager book, I enjoyed it, but it doesn't make me want to, devour more of his books or anything. And then moving right along, these next books are all very comparable and interchangeable. As far as ranking goes, I gave quite a few books this month, 3.5 to 4 stars. But Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton is a memoir, and I did a shorts review for this, so like a 1-minute review. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It is about all the various guys she has dated and her weird dating stories, as well as her relationships with her friends. And that's a big part of this book too, is her female friendships and her female bonds. And so I really like that aspect. She also shares her experience in therapy, which I also really loved her talking about that, because it shows that you don't have to have had some traumatic past to need therapy. She was just a very normal person, and yet she needed therapy and she gained a lot from it. And so I like that representation. And then we have Making a Scene by Constance Wu. Wu. This is another memoir. Constance Wu is the actress from Fresh Off the Boat and Crazy Rich Asians. Those are the two things she's most popular from. And I have covered Crazy Rich Asians. I have a book versus movie, so I saw that one and I liked it. And my husband and I, Fresh Off the Boat is one of the sitcoms we have in our regular rotation. So I'm definitely a fan of her, so maybe that helped me like the book even more. But it is a series of essays, and some of the essays I loved, and then other ones I just thought were okay. So I was tempted to give this a higher rating because, like I said, some of her stories just really resonated with me and I loved it. And she was just so open and so vulnerable and so honest. And in various stories, she doesn't just share her perspective and be like, this is the way it was and this is the truth. She acknowledges the fact that, you know, from this other person's perspective, this is probably what they had going on and this is probably what they were thinking. So I love that she gives that balanced approach to these different experiences she's had. But yeah, I would still really recommend this memoir. There were like a couple essays that I was just like, eh. But for the most part, I really liked it and I'm glad I read it. There was drama with Fresh Off the Boat, which, like I said, I remember hearing about it at the time because I watched the show and she was complaining that the season had been renewed and that she didn't want to be on the show anymore. And I remember being like, what the heck? That's so messed up. But she gets into that and what was going on with her in her life. And yeah, anyway, I would definitely recommend this one, especially if you're a fan of Fresh Off the Boat or Crazy Rich Asians. And then we have The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is a Chronicles of Narnia book. My book versus movie for this is coming out before Christmas, and yeah, I have a lot of nostalgia for Narnia and I enjoyed this one. So yeah, I gave it 4 stars. Didn't love it, but I definitely like it. And then another memoir, You Got Anything Stronger by Gabrielle Union. So I read her first memoir, which she released in 2017. I read it when it was released, called We're Gonna Need More Wine. And then this follow-up memoir was released only like 4 years later. So when I saw she had a memoir that she released so close to her first one, I was like, is that necessary to release a second memoir after only 4 years? But I loved this one. If you had liked We're Gonna Need More Wine, then you should definitely read this one. I really loved it. I liked it better than Constance Wu's, but kind of similar where it's a series of essays. And it seems like there were a couple essays that I was just, well, I don't know. I liked all of her essays more. Like, I didn't think there were any that needed to be deleted per se, but some I just liked more than others. But yeah, I would definitely recommend both of her memoirs. They are both fantastic. And this one, she goes into motherhood and surrogacy and struggling to get pregnant, which she talks about in the first one. But in this memoir, at this point, she has a child through surrogacy, so she gets into that, as well as her child who is trans and talking about that and the LGBT community, and as well as just being Black in Hollywood, being a Black woman in Hollywood. And yeah, I really loved this. Then we have Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, which I also gave 4 stars. Again, this memoir and Gabrielle Union's memoir are pretty close together, and then Constance Wu and Dolly Alderton's memoir are kind of on the same level too. But anyway, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, I did a full book video review for this. I will link to it. But yeah, I really like this. He focuses all about his addiction, alcoholism, and pills. So I loved that that was his focus because I love reading about that. If you're looking for a behind the scenes on Friends book, you will not get that here because he talks about Friends, of course, but it is not the focus. His addiction really is the focus. But yeah, I really loved it. I have my complaints, like I talk about in the video, but overall I would recommend this, especially if you like reading books about addiction. And then The Wonder by Emma Donoghue. This one I did a book versus movie for. The movie came out on Netflix last month, November. And this one is about a nun in England who goes to Ireland to watch a girl who claims she can live without food. And so she's watching her to see, because clearly the girl is lying, right? So she's watching the girl to figure out how she is getting food. And then secrets are revealed as the story goes on. This one, in my list, it should probably be a little lower. I don't know. It had times where it was a bit slow. However, I was always very engaged and I really liked the relationship between the nurse and this young girl. And yeah, I was just so curious right from the start. I wanted to know how Anna was living without food. Like, what's the secret? What's happening? And there was a supernatural element to the book that made me wonder, like, maybe there is some magical reason and she's living without food in some supernatural sense, So it definitely kept me guessing and I really liked it. And I thought the movie was a very good adaptation. So you can check out my book first movie if you want to hear more about The Wonder. And then the last book, I think I've talked about all 9 now, but the last one is All Quiet on the Western Front. This one is from the 1920s and it is about World War I. So the Netflix movie came out in October. My book versus movie will be out December 7th for this one, and it is one you should watch. My brother returns to the podcast to talk about this one, so that was really cool having him back on. But anyway, this one, so war books are not my favorite. I gave this one 4.5 stars. It might deserve 5, but I felt like I don't know, the character development for Paul was good because we are very in his head. But then some of the other soldiers, I didn't feel a strong connection to per se, and they all kind of blended together. And then when it had battle scenes, I wasn't always super engaged because reading battle scenes, watching it in a movie I don't love, and then reading it in a book I especially don't love because I find it boring. So, but even so, I still rated this book really high. So that tells you how good it is because it is just so vivid and it will stick with you. And yeah, it was a great book and I would definitely recommend this. Even if you are not a war book person like me, I still think you should read this book, and I think you will still be captivated by it and horrified by it too, because there are some really graphic scenes in here that you won't forget. Anyway, the movie on Netflix is really great as well. Book versus movie for that coming the first Wednesday in December. But yeah, that is my November reading wrap-ups. I went through those pretty quick. But as far as my 2022 best book of the year, I did not like All Quiet on the Western Front more than Grapes of Wrath. Grapes of Wrath is my current champion. I hope I read a book I like more than Grapes of Wrath next month, because the thought of naming Grapes of Wrath as the best book of 2022, I don't know, I feel really hesitant about that, and part of me doesn't want it to be the best book of 2022, but it beat out all the others so far. The ones I keep coming back to, I mean, Power of the Dog, fantastic. Sometimes a Great Notion, Bullet Train. Sometimes a Great Notion, I think, is the one that I feel probably deserves best book of 2022 more so than Grapes of Wrath. So I feel like that one should probably be in it. But I'll be doing a video in December for the best books I've read all year, and I'll name the ones that were the best for every month because I read a lot of fantastic books. Also, I'm approaching 100 books for the year. I don't know if I'll hit 100 exactly, but I will definitely be close, which is a personal record for me, so that's exciting. And I will also be doing a video for the worst books I read this year, because from those 100, there were quite a few I read that were either just really disappointing or just were terrible or boring or forgettable. So anyway, lots of end of the year wrap up type videos coming in December, which is always exciting. I love watching those videos on other booktuber channels. But yeah, thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think of any of these books if you've read them. Let me know what the best book you read this year was, and let me know also, this month in November, what was the best book you read in November, and what was the worst book you read in November. And yeah, I will see you next time. Bye.